Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session of Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. And this morning, we are going to look at the development, as it were, of republicanism in Jamaica. We are seeing that there is an attempt by the Jamaican authorities to have Jamaica become a republic, to transform Jamaica into a republic. That is the agenda according to the leaders. And we have to really look at that sort of, development and how that will fare in light of our freedoms. Now, we hear much talk about the transformation or the tweaking as they use of the Jamaican Constitution. Now, for a long time, people have been saying that the Jamaican Constitution was not meant to give the Jamaican people freedom, that it was just merely a constitution that was written by our colonial masters who just sort of gave us, right, recycled that constitution to us and say that this is what you will use for independent Jamaica. And for all these years, many politicians, including Prime Minister Bruce Golding, among many others, have been calling for constitutional reforms, meaning that it's time for us to write our own constitution and to lead our own destiny. And that has been, a very, very noble effort and aspiration. But sometimes, particularly after the past 4 years, particularly, I must say, that we've got to ask ourselves the question, what new constitution are they talking about? Now, we see in Haiti also that one of the reasons for which the Transitional Presidential Council has been set up, apart from, gaining the forces, the multinational security forces into Haiti, they have also been set up to also change, as it were, the Constitution, to bring reforms to the Constitution. And you ask yourselves, what reform are they talking about? And who are these people who are going to bring about those transformations, those changes, those reforms? Something that we've got to ask ourselves and we've got to think about. And we see a lot of in different places, including the United States, that there seem to be behind the scene some, constitutional changes there too, in terms of how decisions are made and what sort of country that they're trying to construct or reconstruct, as it were, in the United States. Something is not right, something stands amiss, and we see a lot of protest actions around the world. And now is the time that is really opportune, as I should, if you will, for constitutional changes to occur, for constitutional changes to happen. Now is the time, right? And it seems to me that our leaders are moving swiftly, faster than we can imagine. Now, let's look at the definition of a republic, and I'm going to read you a very basic definition that's coming from Wikipedia, right? And it says here, a republic based on the Latin phrase res publica, or public affair, is a state in which political power rests with the public through the representatives, in contrast to a monarchy. Let me read it again. So a republic based on the Latin phrase res publica, and I think it's res publica, right? So it's res publica, which means public affair, is a state in which political power rests with the public through their representatives, in contrast to a monarchy. For those of you who do not know about Jamaica or Jamaica's government, Jamaica is a constitutional monarchy, which means, therefore, that the monarchy is still the symbolic head of state, right? So in Jamaica, the monarchy is still the symbolic head of state. And for years, I think Jamaicans including some of our leaders, have not been comfortable with that sort of setup, right? There are lots of controversies surrounding what sort of independence Jamaica had obtained in 1962, right? Including the very famous Professor Orlando Patterson, right? Who thought that we really had not been free, right? That we had not obtained a veritable emancipation, not emancipation, but independence. He thought that we were still continuing in the tradition of a monarchical government. And sometimes I wonder if Jamaica is still not a crown colony. I do wonder, particularly when you drive around the island and you see all the green spaces and all the prime lands, and they're just there sitting, not doing anything in a country that needs so much productivity and to put people to work. And we have so much land and we need more universities and more hospitals, and we just have these lands just being wasted, right? And you wonder who owns these lands. And so often I think about it, that the crown owns them. And it means, therefore, that they are responsible for what happens to these areas because they're just there, not being used to build and to construct and to make sure that all the citizens live comfortably on that island. So something that we need to think about. Now, we hear from Marlene, what's her name again? I think that I need to also pull up something that I saw in my email. Let me see if I can pull up that article. That article is very, very important to what we are about to discuss. I thought I had it on my screen, but it seems I did not pull it up on my screen. Let me see. So we have PNP against that. Yeah, I think this is the article that was here. So it says here in the Jamaica Observer, right? No, this is not the Jamaica Observer. Well, let's look at, because it's weird that I did not pull up that article from the Jamaica Observer. Very, very critical piece of article that I had read. Wow, that's interesting. Perhaps I had also, yeah, seems to me that that was so, okay. Okay, all right, so let's work with what we have on the screen, right? Because I'm not be able to um to get that article. I thought I had it, but I don't. And how could I not have that very important article? But basically what it was saying is that, the leaders of government are pushing forward to have Jamaica become a republic, and they're trying to do so by 2025. That's the sitting government, the Jamaican Labour Party. Seems to me that the PNP is against such an action because they are the opposition, right? And the opposition in Jamaica is to oppose everything that the government does. They need to oppose because they need to strengthen their chances of becoming the next sitting government. And remember now that Jamaica's election is constitutionally due by 2025. So it seems to me that the Andrew-led administration is seeking to expedite the process of Jamaica becoming a republic so that they will be able to have that sort of, glory, as it were, over their heads, right? And to say that, well, they have led us into becoming a republic, as Mayor Motley did in Barbados. And I think that that is going to happen. For some reason, I have it within my inner body. There's something that tells me that Jamaica is going to receive. They are going to fast track that sort of process for Jamaica to become a republic. But one of the reasons for which they would want us to become a republic is not to free you and to put the power in the hands of the people, right? You need to understand that. That is not to put the power in your hands. It's more of a symbolic gesture gesture one. And another thing is to change the Constitution. And there are lots of things that Jamaicans are concerned about in Jamaica, particularly as it concerns the foreign dominance and foreign ideologies that are often foreign to us as a people. And I'm not going to talk about these things. I think you should have a clue of what some of these things are. And these changes are going to happen in the Constitution without your not knowing, because many Jamaicans are not literate as far as the Constitution is concerned. Many Americans are not even literate about their Constitution. They have a very superficial understanding of their constitutional rights, right? Many Americans have not read the Constitution through and through, right? They know the basic rights, but they still are not so much, they have not yet done, what a deep, study of that Constitution. And so are Jamaicans, and so are most people in the world, if the truth be told, right? People just do not take up these legal documents. They're too, legalistic in terms of the language that is used. And, it's sometimes a little bit boring to read those legalistic terminologies, right, that are often used in political constitutions. So that is understood. So let me not digress. I just want to say that these changes are going to be definitely incorporated into the new constitution that they're working on. And some of these things Jamaicans are not going to be in agreement with, but they are going to be passing through the House of Representatives, through the House rather, and also through the Senate very, very quickly. And many people are going to be disappointed at the end of the day, because what it seems to me that this is a secret operation, because the other day, one of the leaders of government, I always forget her name, it's Marlene, she came out to suggest that, she can't speak of that was the article I was looking for, because I wanted to read her statement that she made about why the whole operation has been kept in secret, because she cannot divulge information, because she has to stick to the rule of law, right? And the rule of law suggests that we cannot have things leaked out to the public. But this is the public's information. This is the public, you're doing a public job, right? This is not the CIA and the FBI talking about what is secret and what is not secret, right? This needs to be done. The entire process needs to be transparent and something that Jamaicans need to understand what is happening. But she, in her sense of self-importance, because, all Jamaicans, particularly at that level, think that they are very important people. No wonder they call themselves the honorable and the most honorable. Of doing what? Of what? But that is for another conversation. So she is working laboriously on tweaking the Constitution and on expediting the process whereby which we will become a republic. That is what Marlene and her colleagues are doing. I always forget her last name, so please forgive me if I have not called her last name. She is she's some constitutional leader or leader of the constitutional reform. I can't remember her position, the position that she currently holds. I know that she's not the Attorney General, is she? I don't think so. Let's look at a piece here that was written by Caribbean Life, right? The newspaper online, Caribbean Life. And let me see if I can pull this up so that you can see what I'm talking about. It's a pity I did not get that article from the Jamaica Observer, which I thought I had sent to my email. But strange things happen when you're doing these things. Now, so we have here Caribbean Life, and it says here, sorry, the article is titled PNP Against Republicanism Unless Privy Council Goes Too. And that's what I don't understand. Marlene and the JLP government they want and forgive me, Marlene, I can't remember your last name. I always forget your last name. But the GLP wants to have a republic whilst having Jamaica still using the Privy Council, going to the Privy Council, which is the highest court, right? Which is the apex court for receiving justice, as it were. Now, how can you have a republic where you're saying that the people, elect their representatives, yet still you still be going to the Privy Council in England, right? It doesn't make any sense. I thought that the sitting government was going to be fast tracking republicanism, and also that it's going to be in the full force, right? In that it would operate in a way in which Jamaicans would not have to go to the Privy Council. They would deal with their matters probably at home. Now, what has happened? We know that historically the GLP has been against the CCJ, right? The Caribbean, what is it called? Caribbean Court of Justice, right? The CCJ is called the Caribbean Court of Justice. And for those of you who are not aware of Caribbean politics, all colonies, former colonies in the Caribbean, including Jamaica, well, Jamaica still continues to go to the CCJ. Well, they do sometimes go to the CCJ, but there's a lot of doubt, right? Particularly under the Jamaican Labour Party, because Mr. Seaga, that's Edward Seaga, who was the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, he was not so particularly comfortable with the CCJ. Bruce Golding, also another former Prime Minister, he also was not particularly, but in recent times, after he limited office, he did his research on the CCJ, and according to him, he thinks that it is a competent court, right? It's a competent Caribbean court because it has been recently founded. For those of you who do not know, was it in 2001, 6 or 7 thereabout, that court was founded, or could be a little later than that? But Jamaicans particularly are still not comfortable with that court. I remember that with the controversy surrounding that court when it started first, that it was populated by many judges from other parts of the Caribbean, and very few Jamaican judges were on that court. Then there was a lot of back and forth, and should we be a part of the CCJ, that's the Caribbean Court of Justice, that should be the final court, the apex court for all legal matters. Now, that to me, I don't know. I'm not sure how we are going to deal with that, because we have a lot of unsettled problems with CARICOM, right? Because I don't know if CARICOM has benefited Jamaica a lot, and there has been a lot of discussions because the islands are in different parts of the hemisphere, of the sea. So we have Trinidad, for example, is in the south, Guyana there in that southern cone, right? Jamaica is here in closer to Central America and Central and North America. So there is not much interaction between or among us, between Jamaicans and other Caribbean islands, as it were, right? Because the geographical location is different. We're further ahead. So I think farther ahead, I should say. So that is something that we have thought about, and many people, or some people, I should say, let me not say many, because I don't know, but some people have been having, different controversial discussions about how we are going to solve this sort of problem. My solution is that if we're becoming a republic, why don't we have our own court, right? We have the competency there to have judges, and we have, a phalanx of judges that in the diaspora, we could, enlist judges in the diaspora or wherever they come from, but Jamaica could have its own appellate court, right? Could have its own, so-called Privy Council, as it were. We should be developing that. Why should we be going to the Caribbean Court of Justice to make our appeals, known? I think that we should have our own court. If it is that we are looking for independence, true emancipation, true independence, I think that we should definitely look towards that. Now, the article, let me put up this article that I was about to read in Caribbean Life, because sometimes I am distracted and I need to be focused about what I am dealing with. Now, so we look at the PNP Against Republicanism unless Privy Council goes to. So that is what it is, that the PNP are saying, which makes sense. Why are you having us calling ourselves a republic? At the same time, we're still using the Privy Council, we're going to the Privy Council. It doesn't make any sense, right? So you are thrashing the king and you're throwing him out, yet still you are going back to his court. You're going to use his court, his highest court, his apex court, right? It doesn't make any sense. That to me does not make any sense, Marlene. And you are a lawyer, you are a judge, I believe. You need to think better than that. But I'm sure, as usual, they're playing politics, because that is what these people do. As you know, Martin Henry suggested that P.J. Patterson is a politician trained in law, right? And I think that's the same thing I would say for Marlene. Now, when Barbados held a glittering ceremony to dump then Queen Elizabeth as its head of state and become a republic back in late 2021, governments and nationalists in several other CARICOM territories sprang into action, saying they too were very interested in becoming republics. So Barbados became a republic in 2022, I believe, and then all Jamaicans and other Caribbean countries or Caribbean nationals also desire. Now, that is what they say to us, and that is according to them, the polls say that. We really don't know what the people desire, right? We always see a representative of the people, and they say they assume that all citizens or most citizens desire that whatever policy that they're trying to implement. That's what they want, right? Look at abortion in the United States. You know, they give you this impression that all women want to be free and that abortion is going to free them, right? Do most Americans believe that? Do most American women believe that? That's another question, right? And I think that a lot of times our sentiments are tied or tethered to our ideologies and not necessarily the reality. Because I don't think that we're living in a real world, to be frank. I think we're living in a delusional world where realities are often concocted, right? They're often manufactured and they're not real, but they look real and people believe them. And that is what, this is the world that we're living in at the moment. So this is what is happening. We have here, the commission is at an advanced stage of national consultation process and is preparing to hand in its recommendations to authorities, but the main opposition, People's National Party, has made it clear that it would not support any switch to republic or to a republic unless the governing Jamaica Labour Party agrees to also dump the British Privy Council as the country's highest or apex court. So you see that I'm not just, you know, here blabbering my mouth, right? You see with that, that is what is happening, that the PNP is against the fact, which I am not politically inclined in terms of partisan politics. So I do not lean toward the JLP, all right, or the PNP. But what I can say is that what the PNP is saying here makes a lot of sense. Doesn't make sense that you are going to say that you are free, yet still you're going back to the Privy Council, which at any rate, I mean, you know, Charles has something to do with it. King Charles would have something to do with the Privy Council. The PNP wants Jamaicans to have access to the Trinidadian-based Caribbean Court of Justice instead of the British system, as it is way more accessible, as attorneys can travel freely to Trinidad without visas to attend hearings. Now, that to me, I can't say yes or no. I do have my doubts about the CCJ, but that is what they're saying. I'm just telling you what they're saying here, right? And you can, I'm sure you have your own opinions on different aspects. I'm just presenting the facts as they are. Now, so as it is, the PNP is talking with supreme confidence that it would block Jamaica's switch to republic because it is confident that it will win the 2025 general elections. So this is about electioneering, right? This is all about campaigning so that they can, prove to Jamaican people, as it were, who is the more competent leader, whether it's going to be whether it's going to be Andrew Holness or Mark Golding, right? That is what they're trying to do. It has nothing to do with freeing Jamaicans as Jamaicans might think, right? Absolutely nothing. So confident that it held its main party convention at the weekend, where all the fact talk about not supporting the government emerged. Party leader Mark Golding says the outfit's position is an entrenched one, not subject to change in any shape or form. And the JLP would need PNP parliamentary support to make the switch, right? So that's what he's saying, and I'm sure that they are not about to give to give that vote, right, of confidence, as it were. Now, I think this is Mark Golding speaking again. No, let us look at yes, her name is Marlene Malahoo Fort, not Malahoo Fort. Right, now, as debate rages out in Jamaica, the Reform Commission says it is planning to recommend a hybrid presidency with the former holder possessing both executive and ceremonial functions, what do we mean by ceremonial functions? Does it mean that that's what the Governor General plays? But if we are going to get rid of the Governor General, why have ceremonial functions? I'm not sure, right? Am I a political neophyte here? Why do we need to have a president that also, presides over ceremonial functions? It's almost like we're not free, so that we're still mimicking the monarchy, as it were. Not so sure. Maybe I am, as I'm saying, illiterate. Now, Legal Affairs Minister Marlene Malahoo Fort told a recent town hall meeting that reformers are leaning in this direction as the laws will likely be tweaked to make the presidency suited specifically for Jamaica and its local needs. Now, if they're not trying to develop Jamaica's economy, I don't know, and to meet the needs of, just to satisfy the needs of Jamaicans, I don't think that they are trying to meet Jamaican needs, right? Jamaicans' needs, as Marlene here is suggesting. Now, there was something that was here below. Did I see a comment that was here? Perhaps, but that was what was reported, right? And I'm reporting it to you, right? Now, the Voice Online, that's coming from the UK Voice Online, right? It's saying Jamaica on track to become republic in 2025, says minister, right? And the country's foreign affairs minister, Orlando Terrelong, says we owe it to our ancestors to ditch British monarchy, right? That is what the foreign affairs minister, Orlando Terrelong, has said, right, has intimated. So it says again, Jamaica is on track to become a republic in 2025, a senior minister has said. And notice how these papers, they just robotically repeat the same things, right? Oh, I'm bored. Everybody's repeating the same thing. So we have Orlando Terrelong, the state minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, described the potential transition to republic status as Jamaica becoming truly liberated in an interview with The Independent. This is what Terrelong is saying. We remain hopeful that by 2025, we would be completed, or we would have completed, I should say, those reforms and removed the British monarch as the head of our democracy. I've always maintained that we owe it to our ancestors who fought and died so that we could be free. We owe it to the framers of our Constitution, the work done by our national heroes for Jamaica to now walk as truly liberated and independent. All right? So it's all about paying tribute to our ancestors. And that is, a noble effort, I should say, but why not pay tribute to them by uplifting the socioeconomic standards that Jamaica finds itself in right now, right? That is what they should have been doing over the years. But they're not doing that. Instead, we have lots of foreign, companies and corporations in Jamaica buying up all parts of Jamaica and have bought off our key assets or primary assets, yet still we're talking about freedom. Nonsense, utter nonsense. That is not what they're doing, because if they were really, really committed to freedom, they would not have allowed all of these foreign people to have extracted the wealth from the large masses of Jamaica, right? This is just utter nonsense, right? Utter nonsense. And people tend to listen to them and believe what they say because they think that they are representing their best interest, right? That is what is happening here. Now, this is an article that was written in the Guardian, the UK Guardian, and it says, the title of the article suggests here, well, it reads thus: "The view from Jamaica, I can't stand the thought that the head of state is King Charles," right? And we have anti-monarchist sentiment gathers pace after death of Queen and refusal to apologize for rolling slavery. Because this paper is just about to, disseminate every type of propaganda, right? The UK Guardian newspaper, right? So we have, while millions of television viewers globally were transfixed by the pageantry of King Charles III's coronation, right? Millions of television viewers, but lukewarm interest in the ceremony was the clearest sign that Jamaica's nostalgic love affair with the royal family is over. But they're reporting on something that they don't know. Do they even know Jamaicans and what Jamaicans desire or do not desire, right? So they're going to talk to the people who they want to speak with, and then they will say that that is so. They speak to a few people. By the way, this is how news is written right now, that the journalists, they write their articles even before they do their interviews, right? And then they interview the people that reflects the thoughts that they had in the article that was pre-written before the interview was even conducted. And that is why a lot of times you see articles coming from the New York Times and the Washington Post, and you're really wondering, how did these people write these articles so quickly after the event occurred? Sometimes these detailed articles and these long he said, she said, right? And you really, how did they do this? They're very, very skillful people. But if you understand that these articles were written way before, long before, and then they go now into the trenches, they go out into the trenches and they interview the people that really align with the ideologies that were written in their pre-written articles. Yeah, that's how it runs. It means that they are looking for information and they're trying to interview a wide swath of the Jamaican populace, for example. So they speak to a few people that align with their own ideologies, and then they say this is what Jamaicans believe or do not believe. That is often not true. This is the psychology of how the media houses are, how they function, right? That is what you have to understand. So they're going to talk to now this veteran lawyer Hugh Small, right, a member of the 15-person Constitutional Reform Committee charting Jamaica's transition to a republic, is impatient to ditch the monarchy. I can't stand the thought, he said, that the head of state of Jamaica is King Charles III. We tolerated it long enough, and now the public conscience has raised to a boiling point. I'm very anxious to see it go, said Small 81 before the coronation. He can go home and sit down and shut his mouth up. The acceptance Jamaicans had towards Queen Elizabeth has not been transferred to Charles. He is not a very endearing person. It makes it really difficult for me and for a lot of people in Jamaica to think that Charles III is King of Jamaica. You know, Hugh Small needs to understand that he does not represent the large majority of people in Jamaica, right? He is from that class in which, you know, he's privileged, and he does not, I'm sure, interact with the ordinary Jamaican on a day-to-day basis. So I'm not sure what Hugh Small is talking about, right? Or whose voice he believes he's representing, because he's not representing the voices of the masses of people in Jamaica who, you know, as far as I'm concerned, don't even think about the king. If they hear that he's coming to Jamaica, they might. He might capture their attention, but on a day-to-day basis, the king does not capture their attention. So what Hugh Small is speaking is utter rubbish. And he knows that. But again, he pretends as if he's representing the Jamaican people, right? So I think a lot of Jamaicans are, if you should ask me, you know, and that is the irony, I think a lot of them are pro the monarchy, particularly the working class people, because they have not seen what the so-called, you know, leaders, the political leaders in Jamaica have done to improve their lives. And many of them think that, whether it's true or not, that they were much safer during, as a colony, right, under colonialism, that they were much safer, and that Jamaica was much of an orderly country under British colonialism than after our independence in 1962. So I'm not sure what Hugh Small is talking about. And they're going to talk to the Faye Ellingtons, because she's in everything. The broadcaster Faye Ellington, who has covered at least 6 royal visits to Jamaica by Queen Elizabeth, then Prince Charles, Princess Anne, Prince Harry, and then William and Kate, believes that the soap opera style conflicts of the royal family have deepened the Jamaicans' antipathy towards the monarchy. She has criticized the monarchy's rigid, unnatural lifestyle and its maneuvers to protect its image. However, Ellington argues that there are more fundamental issues at the root of the disconnect between Jamaicans and a monarchy they view as archaic, legitimate, and also immoral. She's actually using that word, immoral. I mean, what about our, well, she's not the one using the word, it's actually the writer. What about the government of Jamaica, who is also an immoral government? Now, I think this is what Faye is saying. I think this is her statement. And I quote here, "The display of wealth and privilege for the coronation, much of which was stolen directly or indirectly from colonies like Jamaica, suggests that there still isn't even a vague understanding or acceptance of the injustices meted out by the monarchy to people who were enslaved and colonized," said Ellington. She continues to say, "Most Jamaican young people are over the monarchy." How does she know that? How does Faye Ellington know that? I don't think she does. And she's a great actress, isn't she? They want a head of state with whom they can identify race, color, culture, and circumstances, Ellington says. And notice that Faye Ellington has been making a lot of comments, even about the Bob Marley's movie and all of that sort of thing. And she is in a part of this circle that she thinks, I don't know. But Faye Ellington needs to be aware that she needs to go out and do her research. And she can't come and tell us what is what. Yeah, she made this grave statement during the Bob Marley's the release of the Bob Marley's movie, in which he said that, that Hollywood could not have found a local Jamaican actor to have played the role of Bob Marley that well as the British character that played it. And that was nonsense. And Jamaicans knew that what she was saying was nonsense. But she was on the team, and I'm sure she was, given her, she was compensated for that job, for that role that she played in that movie. So, she had to say what she had to say, right? And sometimes I do wonder about these Jamaican personalities and the fact that they do not stand up for principles anymore, right? So that's what is happening. No, by the way, that Barbados became a republic in 2021. I did say 2022, so my apologies, right? So, because it says that the move to jettison the monarchy appears to have accelerated since the Queen's death and Eastern Caribbean neighbors, Barbados's transition to a republic in 2021. So Barbados became a republic in 2021 and not, as I suggested previously, in 2022. All right, so please accept my correction. Now, this was an article that was published. There was something that was, let me see the voice here. There was something that, yeah, I want to read you this from the voice online, a comment that was left by, I would think, a Jamaican. Well, let me not call it name. And this perhaps is not her name or his name. But this comment reflects my sentiments, right? Because I think it was put well. It was, stated very well. The problems Jamaica has will not be solved by becoming a republic. Beautifully said. And a beautiful sentence to open up her sentiments. The problems Jamaica has will not be solved by becoming a republic. I accept the monarch should have done, or I would say the monarchy, should have done far more to assist the people of Jamaica other than visiting and waving at the people of Jamaica every 4 years whilst on their royal visit. If the monarchy had displayed more practical assistance to the historically loyal people of Jamaica, this political demand to become a republic would not be on today's political agenda. This is what she's saying or he's saying. I'm not sure if this is a male or female. Woe to the people of Jamaica as they become a vassal of the United States. And we are already a vassal of the United States, right? So it's not that we're becoming, we are already a vassal of the United States. And the IMF and the World Bank have really transformed us into that vassal state of the United States, right? With the most stringent IMF policies that, the structural adjustment, under the structural adjustment program, that any country in the history of the IMF, has ever received. And our Jamaican intellectuals at the University of the West Indies and other universities there just sat there as slaves and accepted the exploitation, the flagrant exploitation of the IMF and their team without even batting an eye. If Jamaicans thought British rule was bad, which it was bad, the life of the average Jamaican will certainly decrease as US financial influence and control rises. And she's right. She's right. The average Jamaican will not be the ones purchasing Jamaica's current housing boom. and that is true. That is true, right? They're selling them off to the elites, local and also global elites. And Jamaicans are not going to be able to even access parts of their own land, right? That's what's going to happen very soon. Some of the neighborhoods, just like the beaches that you have that some of you can't access, you don't have access to, you'll not be able to access certain communities, right? Because Jamaica is really, or Jamaica practices de jure segregation, right? Or beaches are segregated in 2024. And, our intellectuals, they will talk about racism in the Dominican Republic and racism between the Dominicans and Haitians. At the same time, we have the same thing in Jamaica because we are hypocrites. We are hypocrites. And we talk about blacks in Mexico, right? And blacks in whatever. You want to see them going to conferences talking about all of their nonsense. And they are not able to unmask the same manifestations that are happening in Jamaica. They're quite comfortable with it, if the truth be told. Our intellectuals are comfortable with that colonial system that operates in Jamaica. Now, if they're comfortable with that colonial situation, why don't they think the other man and woman? Well, won't be. Well, I should say that there's a difference between the ordinary man and woman and the Jamaican elites, academic, economic, and political elites. The political, academic, and economic elites in Jamaica are hypocrites for the most part, right? And all they express, like people in America, or these elites in America, all the philosophies, all these sentiments are tied to ideologies, but a lot of times they don't believe in these ideologies. They just are defending something that they think they should defend, right? Look at what is happening in the United States with the students on campus. There are other problems happening in America, and they're not protesting against these problems, right? Look at what the disaster of what took place 4 years ago, and the thousands of people that have been injured and have died. Nothing became of it. No protest action, right? Protest action for abortion and for the people dying in Gaza. And, I think that people should have the right to protest. But the other side also has the right to protest. And not because I don't agree with you means therefore that I should try to, to suppress your protest actions. But let's stick and remain on track with Jamaica's quest to become a republic. I think that's what I have to share, though. Yeah, there was a thing that I have in the Time magazine which says why the Caribbean has the most energized anti-monarchy movements, and it says here, that's from the Time magazine, 2 days after Queen Elizabeth II's death on September 8th, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda said that the twin island nation would hold a referendum on becoming a republic in the next 3 years. If the referendum is successful, King Charles III would be removed as head of state of the former British colony. The move follows a swell in support for republicanism in the Caribbean, which campaigners say is part of a larger reckoning with the legacy of British colonialism and the slave trade in the region. But, our leaders also are enslaving our people. So what is new, right? They are just the new enslavers and the new colonial masters. So nothing great about talking about, British colonialism if our own people are doing it to, their own brothers and sisters and their own countrymen, right? So what is new? There's nothing new under the sun, shall I say. Even before the Queen's death, the Republican movement was thriving in the region. In November, Barbados became the first country to remove the Queen as head of state since Mauritius in 1992. The Jamaican government is also reportedly seeking to follow suit. Activists and experts tell Time that more and more Caribbeans in former British colonies are perceiving the royal family as an outdated institution, which it is, whose symbolic role in the islands is as inappropriate. Right? It is not inappropriate. It is an archaic institution and something that we should not support. I do not support any monarchy, but if I'm suggesting that the ones that we have down there now in that setup is also a monarchy. Right? It is also a monarchy. What we have in Jamaica is a monarchy where our leaders, our local Jamaican leaders, are still behaving as if they're king and they are queens, right? Without having any respect for the Jamaican people. Because if they had had respect for the Jamaican people, how would they have allowed or formulated policies for us to be segregated from our beaches, for beaches to be inaccessible? And then we have these academic elites who, some of whom are hypocrites, talking about the problem about us not having access to our beaches. At the same time, they are in support of a lot of the ideologies, right? They are in support of a lot of the ideologies. We've got to now ask ourselves the question, are our leaders seeking to improve the lives of the average Jamaican citizen? Or are we just seeing here a change of guard, which we saw in 1962, by the way, right? No fundamental changes, no substantive changes were made to the system. The order was maintained intact with a few adjustments or a little tweak here and there, right? But the old order is still intact in Jamaica. The old order, right? The ancien regime is still in Jamaica, right? And our academic elites love it that way because they too feel very important, right? And they go there and they, flaunt themselves as if they're they're some very important people. And whose minds, for the most part, are also enslaved, are still enslaved, by the way. Because if their minds were free, as Marcus Garvey's mind was free, they would not have behaved or would not be behaving in that manner. They would understand that the average Jamaican represents them, right? Average Jamaican represents them. But this is what I have to say. Hope that you will speak to your representatives and find out from them what are the changes that they're making to the Constitution. And will those changes be to the advantage of the average Jamaican citizens? And I think that Jamaicans, you should request that you see a draft of the proposed constitution or the proposed constitutional changes, that it should be published in the Jamaican newspapers, be it the Jamaican Observer or the Jamaican Gleaner. I think that is something that all Jamaicans should insist on, because I think that if you don't do that, you are on a rapid march back to the plantation, where our Jamaican politicians believe that we deserve to be on that plantation, working for them, not for the British monarchy right now, but working for the Jamaican elites. Thank you so much for joining. Hope to see you in another discussion. Remember to like and to share and to subscribe, right? Like the videos so that the videos can be shared with as many people on this platform as we head on the road to authoritarianism, right? Because we're moving rapidly in that direction. So long. All the best. Ciao.